So without further ado, we have a spotlight on Mr. Chris Pace, who is joining us from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, from the Craig Nielsen Rehabilitation Hospital, where he is an employee there. So Chris, please take time to introduce yourself and take over for us. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you, Norma. And I want to thank you all for joining this presentation and discussion today. A little bit more about myself. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and even though I work in the University of Utah Rehabilitation Hospital, I work in the outpatient clinic. And so I would say 75% of my work is that of doing psychotherapy with our patients. And most common disorders that people have: spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, stroke, amputation, and then just several other things having to do with neurological rehab. But if I listed all of those, it would take up the whole hour. And so it's a pleasure to be here. What I'm going to be talking about today is the book that Norma was referring to, the Chronic Illness Workbook, and actually strategies and solutions for taking back your life. And so as Hank put that up there with Amazon, the Amazon link, that's wonderful. One of the things I do want to warn you about is I really appreciate our hospital being energy mindful, but they have the motion sensors for the lights in rooms. If I'm not moving around enough, it may go black. All I need to do is just wave my hand in front of it. But if I just go black, that's what's happening. So the Chronic Illness Workbook is something that a colleague told me about. And basically, it's talking about different phases, 4 different phases that people experience when, let's say, at the beginning of learning they have a chronic illness, all the way through their stabilization, the resolution phase, and integration. And one thing I just want to make noteworthy is that it's not a linear type of thing. It's a circular pattern. So a person may be at the 4th phase and then have a setback, say the flu or something, and notice that they're going back to an earlier phase. And it'll make more sense when I'm talking about these phases in just a moment. I think this book is a great one. Well, first of all, I get nothing monetarily from this book. So if I'm selling it hard, it's only because I think it's a great book. But I think it's outstanding for just an individual to read. It has exercises in it, and which are very helpful in kind of getting an idea of where you are with your chronic illness. I think this is also great to do with a therapist and family or friends. And I think I would not be doing this topic justice if I tried to do it from memory. And so I apologize, but I'm going to be reading most of it because I just do not want to miss anything that's important there. If I read too quickly, please let me know. Be mindful about that, but the nerves can often make me do that. So we'll go right now. I just need to have reading glasses. So the 4-phase approach presented in the Chronic Illness Workbook gives you a way to rewrite your story and your illness. At the end of your narrative, you'll be able to care about yourself and live a meaningful life in safety and dignity. The 4-phase model explains how people adapt to chronic illness and trauma. So the first phase, called the chronic phase of illness, the crisis phase of illness, and also known as the emotional chaos. In the crisis phase, the onset of chronic illness often triggers a crisis, and individuals often seek relief through medical diagnoses, treatment, mental health support, spiritual help, or substance abuse. Family members, colleagues, and friends may respond with disbelief or even rejection, such as, "I didn't sign up for this." Denial of one's illness is a coping strategy which allows an individual to adjust to the painful realization that his or her life may never be the same. Denial may mean avoiding prescribed medication, diets, and treatment, or hiding one's diagnoses from others. If denial persists, however, it prevents individuals from getting necessary medical treatment and learning adaptive coping skills. Dealing with emotional issues associated with a new illness is essential. It is important to express emotions such as anxiety, frustration, anger, depression, or shame about being chronically ill. Some individuals feel that their bodies have let them down and feel a loss of control because they are unable to work, relationships become strained, and they feel physical discomfort or pain. These individuals should avoid negative thoughts such as, I'm an incomplete person, I'll never get better, or my life is worthless. It's also important to build hopefulness about the possibility of improving, recovering, and learning to cope with one's illness. Seek mental health support. Psychotherapy can be an essential part of an individual's ability to express emotional distress in a safe environment and develop coping mechanisms for chronic illness. So the task in phase 1 is that your task of that of your family and your doctor and yourself is to deal with the immediate hurts or traumas of your new illness. So moving on to phase 2, this is the stabilization phase of the illness. And it's also known as the new coping mechanisms. In the stabilization phase, a plateau of symptoms is reached and individuals become familiar with their illnesses. This can remind an individual of his or her pre-illness, quote, normal life, and he or she may feel a false sense of relief, leading to a return to the pre-illness activity levels and possible relapses and feelings of failure. Illness acceptance entails developing more accurate and positive perception of one's illness and taking charge of managing it. Educating family members who may be in denial about individuals' chronic illness is essential. Healthy spouses may not accept the ill spouse's illness. Conflicts can arise, and this must be dealt with so that the healthy spouse can accept the illness and help the ill spouse engage in health promoting activities. Pacing is essential in the recovery process in order to stop periods of overactivity, alternating with periods of exhaustion. Balancing activities with relaxation and setting limits will result in more stable energy levels and fewer illness relapses. Relaxation skills such as progressive relaxation, hypnosis, meditation, guided imagery, and biofeedback can help one's health and help with coping. Exercise can also help an individual feel better about his or her body in non-strenuous action, as well as non-strenuous activities such as walking, light swimming, or yoga can be helpful. And the task of phase 2 is to begin to stabilize and restructure your life patterns and perceptions. So the third out of the 4 phases is called the resolution phase of illness, also known as the new sense of self. In the resolution phase, an individual has experienced symptoms and relapses that have come to accept that he or she has an illness with identifiable patterns. There is greater acceptance with the pre-illness life, greater acceptance that the pre-illness life will not return. Mourning parts of one's life that have been lost is key because chronic illnesses can strip an individual of most of his or her customary ways of deriving self-esteem, pleasure, and mastery. Accepting that one's body may never be the same and that there will be changes in one's work, social, and recreational lives is essential. Develop new sources of self-worth and life satisfaction by trying new activities that are not restricted by one's illness, such as gardening, getting a pet, listening to books on tape, writing, drawing, or enjoying nature, art, or music. And the task of phase 3 is to develop a new authentic self and begin to locate a personally meaningful philosophy to live by. The final phase, phase 4, it's called an integration phase of illness, also known as creating a new lifestyle. In the integration phase, an individual integrates part of the old self with a new self. The task in this phase is to return to some form of work, if possible, to create a support network, and to integrate one's illness within a spiritual framework. The goal is to achieve the highest degree of wellness that is possible, knowing that illness is not only one aspect of a person's a person's life. Social support is very important for medically ill individuals. Good friends are the ones who are willing to alter their relationships and be flexible with plans to meet an ill person's needs. It is good to plan activities that don't require a lot of energy, quiet talking, eating in, watching a video, or listening to music. Joining a support group can also help decrease feelings of social isolation. Individuals with chronic illnesses may also benefit from couples or family therapy. Getting back to work or finding work that one can manage, given the limitation of one's illness, is an important part of coping with chronic illnesses. Getting in touch with one's spirituality can help an individual increase hope, a sense of purpose, put his or her illness in perspective, and develop new life goals. Finding greater meaning in relationships and daily activities is key. During this phase, individuals also work on finding meaning in their suffering without denial, anger, or regret. And I will add here that there are many people that do not feel they don't have a spiritual aspect to their life, and one does not need that to be able to progress through these 4 phases. So the task of phase 4 is to continue to find ways to express your new personal best, to reintegrate or form new supportive networks of family and friends, to find appropriate employment if you're able to work, or other vocational activities, and to locate your illness experience with a larger philosophical or spiritual framework. In total integration, you arrive at a new, whole, complete life, of which illness is only one part, even if it's an important part. And this next part I'm going to read is a little bit of something I already said, but another key aspect about the 4-phase approach to remember is that it accommodates the fluidity of chronic illness. A unique characteristic of many chronic illnesses is that they relapse and remit. This means while your life will never be the same as it was before you got sick, you go through periods where you feel better and can be more active, and through other times when your health and ability to function are worse. Sometimes you can pinpoint the cause of the relapse. You get sick, you get a cold, or you have an accident, but many times you can't. These relapses may cause you temporary move back in earlier phases of the illness as you cope with the immediate crisis or trauma. So there's my reading, and curious what questions people may have.
Okay, everyone. Chris has allowed the room to show questions and discussions. If anybody has any questions about the first 4 phases, the approach concerning chronic illness, if anybody's got a question, then go down there and pop the reaction button or type it over in the chat. If not, then we'll continue to go on. All right, well then let's clap and give him a hand of thank you today. Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Do you have one last comment you'd like to make?
Who do I?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, it's been a pleasure. And I think you've come up with some excellent questions. Don't know how good my answers were, but no, I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this today. And so thank you.